Have you heard of DNA?
Yeah.
That's where the DNA is, okay? Not going down that road in 6th grade, but when you hear that word again in 7th, 8th grade or high school, you'll remember chromosomes, that's where the DNA is, okay?
Our teachers at Northampton Area School District are some of the most passionate, resilient, and tenacious individuals I've been around my entire life. They are true professionals that adapt with change and do some fantastic work with students every single day. My name is Scott Oste. I am a curriculum supervisor at Northampton Area School District in Northampton, Pennsylvania. I became a teacher in this district in 2015, and back in 2015, my supervisor at the time said that the state will eventually move to either the national set of science standards or they will come up with some version of their own. And so she started myself and Zach in this work almost 10 years ago. And so we took it upon ourselves to learn and grow through the standards at that time, the national standards, because Pennsylvania did not adopt their own at that time. So we started making instructional changes in our classroom. We did a lot of groundwork to build professional development experiences for teachers from the beginning. And so every individual teacher in this building I had to work with on an individual level to understand where they were at that moment in time, and then how do we grow them in terms of their knowledge towards better instruction. So we picked Activate because it provided really a one-stop shop to remove barriers for our teachers. And that one-stop shop provided us a plethora of tools and resources that were all available to us right there in the platform. The kits were already pre-prepared. I was trying to remove as many barriers as possible because I knew this would be a heavy lift regardless.
My students are capable of thinking and acting and solving problems like real-world scientists. My name is Zach Winter. I am a 6th grade teacher at Northampton Area Middle School. When we first heard of STEELS, this is back, Scott and I were introduced to it by our curriculum supervisor at the time. And the big shift for me was getting out of the understanding and memorizing and knowing concepts to being able to have students figure things out on their own. So OpenSciEd does a really good job of intentionally embedding these science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts, which are the more like overarching themes of science, not just specific individual facts. The biggest thing for me is that it's all tied back to a real-world phenomenon. So that's kind of the kickoff point for every unit. It's something that they can connect to, something they can relate to, and we always start by asking questions. The first half of the unit is centered more around making sure students understand that our bodies are made up of cells. So we hear about this 8th grade student who dropped a weight on his foot and it caused some damage. So he goes to the doctor and we see all these reports of his muscles are torn, the bone is broken, he lost feeling, all of that. So, okay, why is that happening? Let's look at what the cells do. And then the second half of the unit is more, how do these systems work together to heal the body? So now we understand there are cells, they have their structure, which is related to its function, and they need to be able to reproduce and make more of themselves to heal the injuries. So once they understand that, then they're able to tie it all back together to show this is what was wrong with the student when he dropped the weight on his foot, and this is what happened along the way that allowed the body to kind of repair itself and heal itself. It's all tied back to that one phenomenon. So as long as we keep recentering them and refocusing them on the phenomenon itself, they see like the continuous build of working towards explaining that one big question that we started the unit off with.
If you take OpenSciEd in general, it's written at a very high quality. And when content is written at a high quality or when materials are written at a high quality, there's a lot of pieces and parts that you have to consider in order to make it all work and blend together. We are no longer talking just about content. We have science and engineering practices, we have cross-cutting concepts, in addition to the DCIs and the content. And so therefore, when you bring in a resource, you have to look for a platform, tools, and professional development that complement each other. You really need all three pieces in order to streamline everything so that when the teachers take those materials, they're not making hundreds and hundreds of decisions about where do I look for this, or how do I find this, or when I have a student absent, what do I do? There's tons of decisions that teachers make every single day. If a resource can eliminate some of those decisions for them and streamline things into a single platform while providing a kit that then aligns to that platform, instructs them where exactly to go, how it's prepackaged by lesson, by module, that is 3 less decisions that a teacher has to make in the thousands of decisions that they make a day.
My first experience with OpenSciEd was actually without Activate. So before we decided we wanted to go the OpenSciEd route, we piloted a unit and we just ordered the materials from wherever was cheapest and downloaded the materials from the Google Drive and went at it. And that took a lot of time. So that this is my 10th year teaching, I've never spent that much time outside of the classroom preparing. So what Activate does that makes it a lot better is organize everything into one place. So the Google Drive folder that you can get from the website, it has everything you need. But if you give a teacher who has no background of what OpenSciEd is, just that folder, the amount of time it takes just to understand this is what's in here, this is what you need, this is how you find it, that is the majority of the time. Once you have the materials you need and you know what to look for and you know what you're trying to find, it becomes a lot smoother and a lot more efficient. So is it more prep time than what I was doing before? Yes, but we can see the positive results that come of it.
When we started this work, I said from the very beginning that if we set the bar high, and I as their supervisor and our district in general sets very high expectations for our staff and for our teachers and for our students. If I set the bar high, we also, in return, have to provide very high support. You can't have high support, low expectations, or vice versa. That's also a recipe for disaster. Early indicators of success have looked like teachers are taking calculated risks with their students. And what I mean by that is they are trying different things that they have never tried with their students before. So they're putting their kids in routines that they have never done themselves. And to me, when you encourage risk-taking, you're allowing them to grow over time because they feel a little uncomfortable at first. And if they feel uncomfortable at first, that just means that temporarily you're going to go through a growth period. When we go through a growth period, that means we're becoming better versions of ourselves. And at the end of the day, we want to become better versions of ourselves as a staff, as an administrative team, and as students as well.
For me, the hardest thing was letting go of the control. So asking a question and genuinely not having a clue what the kids were going to come up with. And that's a good part, right? You want it to be authentic. You want them to not have an answer that they should come up with when you ask a question. You want to know what are they actually thinking. So having that experience with OpenSciEd and knowing that it's all going to tie back together at the end, it's okay to let the students say what's on their mind and ask questions of something that maybe you're not learning this unit, but it's teaching them how to think like scientists. And that's what the science process is questioning things and wondering how they work.
So I live and breathe by, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. What I mean by that is when you look at STEELs or really any endeavor in life, right? These are massive challenges, and it's hard enough to do it yourself, let alone watch other people do it and try to figure it out by yourself. When you bring in other partnerships and other districts, you're taking a team or a collaborative approach to this. Our vendor representative, Ron, has allowed me to communicate with other districts that are either pursuing the product or are looking at what instructional changes we're making. And he's facilitated conversations amongst districts with us. We feel that any vendor we have should be a partnership. It should be a relationship, just like you have relationships with kids. And Activate has allowed us to have that relationship so that we have opportunities to work with other districts and work with you to give you feedback on what we see and hear from other districts. And so inviting districts in has been a true pleasure. I've learned a lot from them, and I hope they've learned a lot from us. We value that partnership, and we think that that's as important, if not more important, than the resources and the tools themselves.
The biggest thing I'd want them to notice is the type of conversation that my students are having. The level of critical thinking that they are showing in those conversations has come so far since the beginning of the year, and that's a credit to the types of things that we're doing with the OpenSciEd curriculum. So we're giving them the chance to dive into things that affect them in the real world. So seeing them engaged and like actually wanting to find the answer for their own knowledge, not just so I can get an A on the test. That's the biggest thing that I've seen so far. OpenSciEd has helped my students become better critical thinkers.
My misconception was because it's free, we will be able to access everything and implement with ease. That misconception is obviously not true. It's wonderful that it's open sourced. I love that it's free and equitable to lots of districts. However, you need guardrails. It's kind of like riding a bike. You can't just go right on the bike and ride it. You've got to have the training wheels for at least a little bit of time to help you learn the process, right? We don't get our driver's license right away. We have to go through that permit phase. It's the same thing with OpenSciEd. You need guardrails to help you get to that next level of instruction. And so the resource and Activate Learning has provided those guardrails and those supports so that our teachers feel confident and comfortable. We have been very intentional about continuing in professional development, providing those supports, and making sure that this is a journey. If I were to give any advice to districts, it would be to be as present as possible in classrooms. You need to work in partnership with your teachers. You need to trust your teachers. They are true professionals, and if you work in partnership with them through this and set high expectations, but set high support as well, it's a beautiful marriage, and you'll make magical things happen. Activate Learning is exceptional.